It's time for a nap. Welcome to Beyond Work podcast. We are going to be giving you ASMR vibes all night long by snoring and breathing soothly. No, we're not.
Red alert.
This is Beyond Trek podcast. I'm Dag. I'm the co-hosts I've got with me today are Suzanne and Renzo. Today we are going to be going over a trilogy of episodes. Prodigy came out and we are 3 episodes deep, so we're going to bring to you our take on Asylum, Let Sleeping Borg Lie, and All the World's a Stage. Tonight, reading our recaps is going to be Suzanne and myself. This is your spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Suzanne, take it away.
Go into the first one. Give me a second. There it is. We're going to start out with Asylum, which is the premiere of the second half of the first season, which is not a way that I've seen them do animated series in the past, but here we go. We first catch up with the crew of the Protostar inside an aquatic vessel trying to remain undetected while saving a large whale, or aquathon as Gwen informs us, from poachers on a new planet. Ooh, my bad. While Dal reminds Gwen to stay undetected due to the Prime Directive, she makes a few maneuvers to try and base the aquathon where they need her to go. She's one of the last of her kind and essential to the planetary ecosystem. Dal unintentionally sends Gwen into a fragmented flashback of her father, who tells her that it is a weapon, quote-unquote, before she gets them eaten by the aquathon. Zero beams them all out at the last second, and they meet Rocktalk, Murf, Zero, and Janeway back on the ship. Hollow Janeway tells them that they're approaching safe waters to relocate the creature, as Zero questions Gwen about what happened down there. She tells them what her father said, and Zero reminds her that they will not rest until all of Gwen's memories return. The aquathon and her babies are relocated, and the crew warps out. Dal's captain's log explains that it's been weeks since leaving Tars Lamora and saving the Unwanted, but Gwen still cannot remember any details of what happened due to catching a reflection of Zero. Meanwhile, they've been trying to do good in the galaxy, hoping that despite technically stealing Starfleet's ship, they'll be taken in if the Federation understands that they're a bunch of kids in need of guidance. They've reached the furthest comms relay station into Starfleet, and are hoping to make contact and be taken in. Rocktalk is hesitant, thinking that things might go wrong, but Dal holds on to hope that they will finally be accepted for who they are, with a fresh start and a purpose. Janeway gives him a pep talk, he gives her a hug, and they're on their way into the station. Donning their Starfleet uniforms, they are enthusiastically and dramatically greeted by the Denobulan officer stationed there, who is surprised that he didn't receive a heads up. Lieutenant Junior Grade, Barnes Frex, welcomes them to what he likes to call the final frontier, but is shocked to find that the kids are not Starfleet. They explain that they're there to return the ship and ask for asylum, and he tells them that Starfleet accepts all kinds. When completing the bioscan, Jankum Pog finds that his kind is one of the founding members of the Federation. Rocktalk finds out that she's a Brickar and that there are multiple branches of science. Gwen, predictably, doesn't show up in the system. Zero is a Medusan, and Murf is a melanoid slime worm. Dal does not think he'll be in the system, but he is. However, the system flashes an order to report to Starfleet Command. This doesn't seem to faze him, as he is simply excited that the system knows what he is. The scene shifts to a holoprogram created by Vice Admiral Janeway, detailing the day that the Protostar was sent out on its first mission. Captain Chakotay and Vice Admiral Janeway catch up before Janeway reminds him how far from home he will be, and he promises to call if he gets into any danger. Janeway freezes the holoprogram, asking why he didn't call, before Commander Tysis enters to inform her that Ensign Essentia has found the Protostar's warp signature on a planetoid in the Carina Nebula, and she orders them to set a course, vowing one more time that she's going to go get her man. Murf and Rocktalk begin exploring the different branches of science, while Zero and Gwen enter the sickbay, where they explain to her that there is a procedure that may aid in recovering all of her memories before the incident. Gwen is hesitant and afraid, asking what happened to her father, and Zero tells her only that he cannot hurt her anymore. She wants to remember, and thus the procedure begins. Meanwhile, Dal and Jankum are in the mess hall, where Jankum has replicated a mountain of hot dogs, and Dal remains amazed that he is finally going to find out what species he is, as Jankum keeps reminding him that his kind, Tellarites, are Starfleet royalty. As Lieutenant Frex uplinks the ship's logs from the Protostar, the station begins turning against itself, as the weapon the Diviner first alluded to on the Protostar is engaged. Seemingly hacked, the station begins to turn weapons on itself, the replicators and doors malfunction, and Gwen's force-fielded biobed begins to fill with water. They all get to sickbay thanks to Zero, and once Gwyn is broken free, they run for their lives, finally realizing the station is trying to kill them. They run into Lieutenant Frex, who blames them for what happened, and the ship begins to pull away from the station as he takes the only escape pod. The only option is to take a leap of faith, or a space jump out of the shuttle bay, into the shuttle bay on the ship. My goodness. Rocktalk has to do the math for trajectory, and she's frightened and rushed, though the jump is almost on target. They miss the shuttle bay, unfortunately, thinking they've lost, but Janeway sets a tractor beam on them, and while they're suspended waiting to board the Protostar again, Gwyn suddenly has a flashback, informing the crew that she now remembers everything. Janeway, meanwhile, ends up at Tars Lamora. Admiral Janeway, that is, broken and shattered though it may be, looking for Chakotay. Her away team realizes that the place has seen battle, and Janeway picks up a broken comm badge as one of her officers informs her that there is a faint life sign. When they arrive to the signature, it isn't Chakotay but the Diviner, and Janeway wants to take him out of stasis and find answers, not knowing the danger that lies ahead when she does. And that's the premiere.
I thought the episode was a fantastic way to start off the second half of the season. It definitely gave us a lot of good teachable moments for the kids, and was just a good, interesting storyline.
I liked that we had to save a pregnant whale who was
cool.
Essential to their ecosystem at the beginning. That was with a jellyfish. Like, that ship looked way familiar.
Yeah, it looked a little bit like a Gormagander.
I thought the ship looked like a jellyfish from
Oh,
Hero.
you mean their ship, not the whale. Yeah,
I did. Yeah. I also, did y'all notice at the beginning of the episode when the ship was coming toward the water and beamed them all out? That was very Kelvin, and there was the Star Trek 2009 theme was in the. I mean, Nami's amazing. The composer.
Kind of what I heard that.
Yeah.
Michael Giacchino did the music for Kelvinverse and did the opening theme for Prodigy, so they've got good connection.
Yeah, so she's probably, works with him on that as well. But yeah, I think that a lot of the cues in the soundtrack for Prodigy are really amazing. I think that the soundtrack is one of the strong. I mean, obviously there are other strong points beside the music and but the music is really, really great. And I like hearing the occasional Kelvin thing, which makes me wonder. And this is a theory I've seen floated around, that this is set in the Kelvin universe.
Nah, I don't buy it.
I don't know, because we don't know. I've kind of seen it floated around, and with the music cues and everything, I don't know. I wonder, but I don't think so. But also, it's out there.
So, I read an interview with Aaron Waltke that hints at otherwise.
Okay.
And we'll
so
talk
not
more
so much
about
that,
that.
but something different. Okay.
We'll talk more about that when we get to the third episode review, because it was a specific interview about that episode.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think the entire plot line where they're trying to find, they're just getting to this comms relay, is really, really interesting, because we've seen comms relays in the past, like Lieutenant Aquiel was at one. We've seen a few that were mentioned here and there, but this one's big compared to all the rest, and it's quite a developed little starbase, to be honest.
Yeah, especially for being as far out as it is. Like, you think it would be not quite as, I guess, nice, ? But it's huge. It's massive, and it's a lot of effort for them to put in. I mean, I guess that's, outreach. They want to give the best foot forward, whatever, but it's still interesting to me that it's so nice.
As far as for how far away it is, this is one of the few times in Star Trek where they actually tell us a real world location that we can tell where the hell it is in the galaxy. So they said it was near the Carina Nebula, which is a real thing in the Milky Way, which is a part of the Carina Sagittarius arm. So we know where the Carina Nebula is. So I can tell you that this is like in the Beta Quadrant, past Romulan and Klingon space. So it's like deep in the Beta Quadrant. So
wait, I thought that was where the Protostar's warp signature was at Tars Lamora, where
that's where they were heading
Admiral
towards.
Janeway ended up going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not the comms relay. The comms relay, because remember, they left it weeks ago. So the comms relay is somewhere a little bit different, but at the same time, not that far off. Okay.
That's my point, though, right? So they're closer to Federation space than the Carina Nebula, which tells us that they are not that far away from, like, actual Federation space.
Yeah, for sure.
And now they have to remain out there.
Yep. And that's the lesson that they got from this living future weapon thing.
Well, yeah. That's next episode, though.
True.
That's next episode.
I'm over here like, that's Dreadnought's eye, yo.
For real. I wonder how much he has to. I mean, I wonder if that's like a off, like if they sort of met in space and decided, like, well, I have this thing. You want to use this thing? It's evil. You want it? Type of thing. I don't know. I wonder.
It's from the future. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
We have not seen the end of Dreadnought. I don't think so. I feel like we might see him again.
He was a cool villain. I hope he does come back somehow.
Fritz? Rex? Wait, no,
hold on.
Oh, Barnus Frex, the Denobi one?
Frex, yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah, Frex is who I'm talking about too. Like, I don't know if he was so much of a villain though. I think Frex.
Frex is normal. Frex is like, what the fuck? Like,
Frex is definitely gonna come back, but I don't think Frex is Starfleet. That's just my suspicion.
Oh, I have no reason to think he's not Starfleet. He seemed like he was like an adequate junior officer administrator of like a little comms relay.
Yeah, but then
he seemed like a lower decker a little bit.
The third episode happens, and
we'll get to that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
When we get there.
One thing I really want to say that I think is badass is the fact that the the comms relay itself has like phaser mounts that like deploy and can defend it from attack. Granted, because of the cyber virus, it actually ends up blowing itself up, but it's really cool that this thing is actually armed and capable of defending itself somewhat. It's a cool look. It's actually contrasted to how the Starbase was in the last episode of Lower Decks, where it also deployed some weapons but was kind of hapless to defend itself, really. So that's an interesting take, and I like it.
Yeah, that might be a cause for conversation about how content we are closer to our bases of operation.
Yeah,
we think that we're fortified, and the chances of attack at ground zero are little to none.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how, and this is random, but it's something I saw on Twitter that I loved. Murf being a melanoid slime worm was something that like everybody guessed and couldn't figure it out. But then Aaron Walkie like retweeted somebody guessing it from like 2021 or something, or a while back, you know, and said retweeting this for no reason, like after the episode aired, because somebody actually managed to guess it, and he just couldn't say anything for like months.
Renzo, are you familiar with the significance of a melanoid slime worm?
It was an insult that was used at Wesley Crusher by Zaldin. I know that much.
That's what it was, and it goes back to my love for Zaldins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's such a good deep lore pull to bring that back. I love Aaron Walkie for this. It really shows he did his research to find things to create his characters on. I also like the fact that we got confirmation. Yeah, I agree. We got confirmation that Roktok is a Brickar, which again is originally from the Star Trek novels. So excellent job there.
Thank you, Peter David.
Mm-hmm. So we get lots of cool references to like the expanded universe of Trek, really.
I absolutely love that Star Trek sees like cat aliencation, rock alien brick. Like, I love it. I love that like it goes so deep into certain stuff, and sometimes it's just like rock. It's awesome. I love it.
Not everything needs to be complicated, right?
Yeah, I mean that's language. I mean that's how language works. We see like a thing that flies, butterfly, whatever. You know, it flies. It moves. You know, it makes sense that like in
the Earth,
Federation
it's made
language,
of dirt. It's Earth.
It's Earth. Yeah, exactly, precisely. That's how language works. We see a thing and we name that thing based on what looked like, and I love that. She's rock.
It's pretty much how we name everything, though. Like elevator, elevates.
Yeah, exactly. It's just Latin structure.
Escalates. Even in like the UK, the lift lifts.
It lifts for sure.
Mm-hmm. But does the boot?
Yes, the boot does boot. That's why it boots.
Oh, it's boot.
So I actually think it's actually a really cool idea that as soon as they're being checked in to like join the Federation by Barnus Rex, he scans them to figure out what exactly their races are. I think that makes perfect sense. You know, it checks them for like pathogens or devices that they may be carrying on them, but it's under the guise of, hey, we just want to know what species you are. That seems like good security protocol to me.
Yeah, I agree. I also
think reading into it more for a kids show.
Maybe a bit.
Yes, but also, I mean, it would still make sense in that way of like, we have to make sure we're not at war with you real quick. Because he's been out there a while. I love how enthusiastic he is. I really like this character. I think we might end up not liking this character, but I do. And I think, like, his reactions were pretty normal.
So far, I like him. He reminds me a lot of Phlox, which makes sense. He's just enthusiastic about everything.
He's just a guy. I like him.
Yep.
He's a cool guy. And then well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that, like, the starship blew up his station. He's like, cool, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I also loved Jankum Pog's reaction to finding out he's a Tellarite, and the Tellarites founded the Federation, and that makes him Federation royalty. Loved that.
I struggle to like Jankum Pog. I really do. And it's not because... It's because he reminds me of, like, jocks in high school. You know? Like, he's a jock.
But he's the gearhead mechanic.
I know, and I'll get over it eventually. Like, I didn't like Dal at first, and then Dal, like, realized, like, oh look, life is finite, and then, like, he's less of a dick. But, like, Jankum, yeah, I loved the cylindrical meat though. That was a good moment for him.
Dogs.
Relatable, dude. It's me too. I would also replicate a hot dog the first thing if I saw a replicator. Are you kidding? Oh my god.
I thought the holographic flashback with Chakotay's, like, weaving ceremony was really cool. It's a good bit of, like, character building for Janeway in this case, because now we see why she feels so burdened by this. It's not just her history with Chakotay, it's the fact that she literally said she'll be there for him, basically, if he needs her. So it puts a bit more onus on her, which makes sense. That's definitely the character we expect her to be.
No, it definitely makes me emo, because, like, this is so fan headcanon of me. Hear me out. But Janeway making a holo program of that moment, she probably made it while that was happening, because he was going back into space that they hadn't explored. When the last time it almost killed them, and she doesn't want to forget what he looked like if he dies, and it just upsets me a little bit. It upsets me. And I also but on a better note, I love the wine bottle hitting the ship. That's funny. That's a good little detail. But I just...
Well, and it's consistent with all the things that we've seen. They christened the Enterprise B the same way. Generations ominous opening.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We were trying to figure out what is that thing spinning there.
Yeah,
that's true.
I thought it was an anomaly at first. I was like, oh, that's the bad guy. No, that's Dom Perry Young's 2265.
So true. That's vintage, baby.
I also really thought in the holograph scene, that moment where real Janeway steps out from inside of the hologram of Janeway was really, really cool, because the expression on the character is so different. In the holographic Janeway, she's like smiling and happy. The eyes are wide, like she's happy for her friend because he's going off on an adventure. And then we've got the real Janeway, who has got this like sternness to her, no smile. Yeah, it's a really well done shot.
Yeah, and it's also well animated too. It's hard to do that and not make it look bad. Like, I mean, I guess you can get away with a little bit of clipping because that's literally what it is, but it looks good. It didn't stand out to me as like having any technical flaws or anything. I say as I'm not an animator, but I watch a lot of animated shit. Anyway, I thought it looked great, and I really liked the way that, I mean, she's a little obsessed. I mean, how many times has she replayed that?
She's
what I would
Mama Bear.
like to know.
She's Mama Bear. When any of her cubs, even Chakotay, her cub, goes missing, she goes into action. She's probably like drilled this into her head.
Oh yeah.
Other things that I thought were really... Oh, go ahead.
What is one of Captain Janeway's most memorable lines?
There's coffee in that nebula.
Okay, that's one of them. But let's go with relevant in this situation.
Sorry.
And also, according to this show, there's tea in this nebula. So.
Oh my god.
That's such a good little scene too. Doctor's
orders. Is it because of her blood pressure? Baby, are you good?
No, it's probably just like a stress thing. I don't think they worry about blood pressure in the 25th century.
All right. This is the quiz. What are Janeway's 3 rules of being a captain? Yeah, let Janeway stand, raising hand, go.
Always go down with your ship, tuck your shirt in, and no man left behind. Yay! I don't know why I was so excited for that.
And
like
she's
Hermione
living up to that here.
Going,
She's the one who authorized the mission. She's the one who sent Chakotay on what should have just been a routine go and come back, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, but he didn't call, and I have a feeling she has a little bit of, not resentment toward him, but more of like, what happened?
It's a mystery.
For him not to send any type of distress call.
He probably tried.
Probably,
Well,
I would assume.
So
Or didn't
I've
get
got
a chance.
I've got a piece of beef here, and I'm gonna take Big J's role on this one.
All right, Renzo
One
beef.
thing that bugged me about this episode, it's a subspace comms relay. A comms relay should never be out of communication with the rest of its network, right? If this comms relay got infected with whatever the living weapon has, why didn't it immediately spread everywhere already?
That's my thing. I feel like it's one of those things where you have to actually scan it to do any damage. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense because it would take a long time for it to destroy the entire Federation.
Right,
So-
the entire proposition is that as soon as they make contact with one Federation ship, it's going to spread to all of them, right?
It has first there's physics. It has to propagate at the right speed. So if it's a subspace relay hub, then it's propagating at subspace to the next relay hub. If we go with worst case scenario,
it would still be almost instantaneous, right? Like we're talking about.
it's propagating at the speed of subspace. It's a way faster than warp, but it's still the speed. I mean, remember the dilithium explosion in Discovery? There were still like milliseconds of,
That's fair.
of variation between the black box recordings. So there was an epicenter, and for all we know, the only other Starfleet presence we've seen is Janeway's ship. And so while this relay is communicating stuff, away, Janeway's ship is outside the loop for a minute and maybe on the back end of that communication. For all we know, the Federation is burning right now. We don't know.
That's fair. I don't think so, but I'm not saying that it should have gone to the Dauntless. I'm saying that if this is a comms relay, it should be relaying comms. It should be talking, doing a heartbeat essentially to other comms relays, just speaking like, hey, you there? Hey, you there? Hey, you there? Right? In one of those hey, you there's, the living weapons malicious code should have gone with it, and it should have spread out. It's just my inclination. Unless
Maybe.
Starfleet somehow got better at cybersecurity than they've ever been before.
Here's something. Number one, they might be air gapping these things because, security is important. But two, this is a
Kid show.
I don't know. Maybe it's a kid show. Thanks for getting meta. But also maybe there's something about like energy conservation out on the frontier. Like you don't want to have your landline constantly open if you don't need it constantly open, so you shut it down. Just sit there and scan for class 2 comments.
Fair.
Yeah,
That's
but
fair.
it is one of those things where it's a kid show. We have to see how the big boom weapon works first, and then we'll figure out it, later. And I know from a trailer. Do y'all watch trailers?
I do.
Am I cool to talk about?
Wait, what trailer are we talking
There
about?
was a clip that they released before the first episode premiered of the Dauntless chasing
Oh,
Protostar?
the
the
Protostar.
Protostar. Yeah, and the whole point is that
okay.
they're like, we cannot let them make contact with our ship at all. And so it does look like it does look like that's a thing that will is it communications or is it like uplink data? Is it I don't understand how starship mechanics work.
I
but
mean, in a world of
it
VoIP,
seems-
essentially.
Sad.
I'll be sad. No, it's okay. Janeway can't die. She's fine.
Wait. No, it's a kid show.
Dag, what did you think of the bridge that extended from the Protostar to the comms relay for them to cross?
Okay, so interesting gangplank. Yeah. It was all force field.
Yeah, which I liked. I thought it was like
it was
a more
cool.
advanced version of the Discovery one when they were transferring people off to the Enterprise.
I would have preferred just like closer contact. Why is it 50 meters to the ship?
That's
You
fair.
don't
Can we be like 10? Is 10 okay? Maybe 15?
They're getting in their steps for the day, Dag.
Getting in
Steps.
there.
Yeah, it's
They
all
are
about
kids,
health
their
and wellness.
metabolism doesn't need that.
You never know. Well,
Exercise at every age.
Actually, I don't know how old Rock Talk is anymore.
I was literally about to say like I think Rock Talk is like maybe 50.
We don't know how old Murf is.
Murf is a million.
Murf is the best. I'm excited to find
Murf.
out what mysteries he holds.
Well, we are. Yeah.
But I love
into that.
All right.
Okay, so other things in this episode before we go to the next one. I really thought that Rock Talk's moment where she's like computing calculating the trajectory for the jump was really, really cool. I think that the fact that they showed like little formulas popping up there, it's obviously meant for kids, and it was really well done, I thought. Any other thoughts on, Janeway finding Daddy-O at the end of the episode?
Daddy-O. I'm only calling him Daddy-O from now on. Yeah, no, I admire her tenacity. Bitch, you don't know this man. Like, be careful. Ooh, Janeway. It's very in character for her to just be like, cool, hitchhiker, let's get him. Like, she's gonna do everything she possibly can to find Chakotay, which is very in love of her. But, it's very much like, cool, random man floating in the void of a place that saw battle with a random bioserum attached to him. Cool. Put him on the ship. Let's go. She is something. She sure is something.
Yeah, I'm a little interested in the disconnect. The last time we saw the Diviner, he was edging in the dirt, and then now he's floating in his armor. So
yeah, I mean, I guess gravity turned off or whatever. But
yeah, but he wasn't wearing his armor in the previous scene either. He was mindlessly just babbling into the ground in clothes, and now he's in his armor floating in the space where his daughter told him to screw off left.
I mean,
so it's just an interesting discontinuity. I'm sure they'll address it. They've been really doing really, really good things with that kind of connection. So,
could have been Dreadnought.
No, the Hawk Dreadnought got destroyed already.
I don't think he got.
The 3D printed version on the ship got destroyed.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I feel like he would still be on Tarsal. I don't think we've seen the end of him because he's too cool a villain not to.
One died on their ship, being marauded by the miners.
Right, and one got sucked out.
Yeah.
Huh.
Not sure. I'm sure we'll see more of Dreadnought. The character and the design are too cool.
If he can be uplinked though, and downloaded and 3D printed, then couldn't that signal still exist somewhere?
Speaking of 3D printed, do you think that
wait a second, are we going to talk about light speed signal? Because the Protostar could just warp out to an area where that signal is still expanding and just receive the signal.
Yeah.
Ugh, cool.
I was going to say though, do you think that submarine that they used in the first scene was 3D printed out too?
Probably.
Yeah. Most likely.
I think that's such a cool expansion of the concept of the vehicle printer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing.
Why carry a series of ships that you don't know you'll need, and use that energy up on a long distance prototype where you probably not going to need a shuttle unless you need a shuttle. The whole point of the 3D printer was to make this ship as modular and versatile as possible. So I am all about downloading a car. Wait, what?
You wouldn't. You wouldn't.
No, I do have one more beef. I have beef this time.
Smelly beef? Give us the beef.
Why on earth does a comm station out in the middle of who knows where have a better sick bay than a new shiny No, that's weird. I don't like that, especially considering that it's an exploratory vessel. They're going to be out far away from Federation. They're going to have an up-to-date sickbay.
I have an idea about this one.
Okay.
Protostar, long-range vessel, but moves fast, could probably get home quickly. Comms relay in the middle of nowhere, high chance of first contact was the whole reason that they knew that the Vanakat wasn't in the system, because they hadn't contacted the Vanakat yet. You don't know who you're going to meet out here. You might meet people that are gravely wounded and they need quick scan of their biology and fixing. So that's true. Okay, that's my reach.
Also, even going back as far as TOS, right? They've always talked about star bases having better medical facilities than starships. Picard needing his heart transplant. They mentioned it in TOS a few times. Always star bases have a better medical facility, but this isn't a star base. It's just a comms relay, so it's probably just a version of a sick bay from a starbase.
Yeah, that would make sense because it's not a starbase sick bay, but it is gonna be.
Also,
you're probably gonna meet random aliens.
The comms relay base also only had like space for one person, which they only have one crew member. So perhaps it's really just like as an auto dock for one in case anything happens to Barnes Frex.
Right.
Maybe.
He slips, falls, breaks his leg, teleports into the thing, it fixes it, and then
He gets too excited and like falls down the stairs greeting people.
A Pyrithium bat sucks his blood.
I'm still suspicious of that guy. He had 2 different types of rank pips on, and I'm not about that. I would like to think that somebody, even a frazzled somebody, would still take pride in their uniform.
It's true. He did have one of those provisional ones on it, which was very weird.
He had a provisional ensign's pip, and then I think he had lieutenant junior grade pips. And I'm just like, it's interesting. He had an up-to-date comm badge. He had a variety of TNG spacesuit. The dip was in the middle and not off to the left. So
yeah, he did kind of pull a peanut hamper there at the end.
Peanut fucking hamper.
Well, I mean,
Sorry,
he didn't want to go down
one.
with the base. He didn't want to go down with the base. He just took the one escape pod against what he thought were saboteurs.
There's only one escape pod, so that which confirms that really is only space for one here.
I need to make a graphic like the Michael Jordan one that says "fuck them kids," but with a picture of him specifically in black and white. I think I'm gonna do that tonight. Actually,
Any other final thoughts for this episode, then, guys?
I was just gonna say, shall we move ahead to?
We should truck along.
Let the Borg be with you. I forget.
Let sleeping Borg lie.
We are naming the episode "Let the Borg be." May the Borg be with you. Oh God. Okay, here we go. Gwen sets up a hologram of her last memories, detailing what her father told her about the weapon that will corrupt any Starfleet ship it comes into contact with. The whole crew watches this holoprogram, though Murf seems to be disturbed by all of it. Gwen explains that her father is from the future, as the first contact with her homeworld that would eventually destroy it has not happened yet, and he was attempting to save his world and his people by destroying Starfleet. Zero stops the program before the part where they reveal their true form, and leaves feeling guilty while Jankum screams at them to find the weapon on his ship. They look and look, but can't find anything until they check the bridge, where Jankum reveals what Gwen calls a symbol of Solemn. Her heirloom reacts to the words, forming a key that opens an entire subdeck. This subdeck is completely unknown to Holo Janeway, so Jankum votes to go in last. They enter the deck below to find a red, glowing, angry-looking disc floating in the middle. This, of course, is the weapon from the future that they must disable in order to save the ship, and to save Starfleet in the process. Jankum tries to phaser it, but it moves out of the way of the blast, screeching before it comes together again. They can't kill it, they don't know how to disable it, and everything seems lost until they get a proximity alert from the bridge. They've come across a BORG cube, and Janeway tells them about this species before she advises them to run away as far as they can. Gwen, however, realizes that the BORG may have a way to help them disable the weapon since they can adapt to others, and Dal agrees. Eventually, the entire crew is on board with the idea, save Janeway, who begrudgingly tells them everything she knows about the BORG. On board Admiral Janeway's ship, she orders a black tea, doctor's orders, as Ensign Essentia takes her to sickbay to catch her up on the progress the doctor has made with the patient. The diviner only speaks in fragmented thoughts, and Janeway orders the doctor to find a way to wake him fully, but the doctor angrily tells her he does not even know what species the prisoner is. Ensign Essentia reminds the doctor that the suit they found him in contains some sort of bioserum that was keeping him alive, and that they may be able to wake him if it is replicated. The doctor chides her for kissing ass, but Janeway orders him to do it, and they set a course for the last known warp signature of the Protostar at the comms relay station. Holo Janeway explains to the Protostar crew that the BORG cube is disabled by cause of a neurolytic pathogen, which we'll talk about later, and that as long as they ignore the BORG and do not threaten them, they should be left alone. She reminds them to be quick and be careful before they get off the ship and begin exploring the cube. Jankum Pog admires all the technology that surrounds him before they inevitably run into the thousands of rows of BORG drones above them, and they seem now to understand the danger that they could be in. They need to find the nerve center, or the vinculum, to access the data they need to disable the weapon, but they have to climb and travel quite far to get to it. Once they reach the center of the cube, Jankum is cocky and tries to hack his way into the system, but while he fruitlessly searches for a console or any buttons at all, Dal realizes that one of them has to be plugged into the hive mind to find any information. After a bit of bickering, Zero reports that they once belonged to a hive mind, and that if anything happens, they remember how strong the pull of a hive mind can be, and will be able to get out without consequence. Dal makes them promise, and they are plugged into the collective. The Borg quickly try to assimilate them, and they seem to get lost in the overwhelming nature of a hive mind once again, not realizing, as Hollow Janeway does, that the Borg are waking up. She hurriedly informs the crew and tells them to be quick about it. Before they can retrieve Zero, the drones begin to chase them, and they have to leave and come back for them. They begin to fight the drones, Rock with her fists and Gwen with her heirloom, but the Borg are quick and easily outnumber them. Eventually, Dal is able to set Gwen free, but they are all captured, and Gwen must go find Zero to save them all. Meanwhile, the Borg and Zero are engaged in a conversation. Zero explains that there is a weapon on the ship, but the Borg have already scanned it, and instead of helping them disable it, they will assimilate it to destroy their enemies and advance the Borg. They begin to assimilate Zero, and resistance may be futile. Hollow Janeway informs Gwen that she doesn't have long until the Borg fully assimilate the crew, and she has to hurry. Gwen pulls out her weapon, but Janeway tells her to stand down, so she walks through a sea of Borg drones, trying not to be perceived as a threat. She finds the crew and tries to break them free, but Zero returns as a full part of the collective. And while, with quite a few drones as backup, Zero tells them that they are not themselves anymore and that they hurt the crew. Gwen has to talk them down, saying that what they did to protect her was an act of love, and something they should not be ashamed of. Resistance in this case proves not to be futile, and Zero breaks free from the hive mind and sends all of the drones back into a dormant state before breaking them out of their chains and heading back to the ship. Once they get back and clear the Borg cube, Zero informs them that the weapon, the living construct as it's called, cannot be deactivated or removed, according to the Borg's information. Dal realizes that they cannot go to Starfleet to find out who he is, but they can do some good along the way. They are all disappointed, but they respond to a distress call, hoping they can save someone and work together as a ship and as a crew. Admiral Janeway arrives at what used to be the station, flying past nothing but a debris field as she details the findings in her log. She realizes that Chakotay could never have done this, and vows to put an end to this treachery just as the diviner wakes up in sickbay. This episode was very cool. I really liked it.
So I did not expect to see Borg in Prodigy. I thought that they would be too scary or too creepy or too complicated for a kid's show, so I was delightfully surprised.
I was very happy. I remember I talked to my dad about this episode, and he was like, "Oh, I wonder if they sanitized the Borg for the kids." I'm like, bruh, have you seen Dreadnought? Have you seen that guy? It's like the Terminator mixed with Doc Ock mixed with nightmare fuel.
Guys, the internet is rife with saying that this episode made the Borg scary again.
Yeah,
they can't negotiate with them. You just have to get out of their way or get them out of yours.
Yep. It was scary. It was like, I don't know, it wasn't sanitized. I guess it wasn't the same effect as it would be in live action, obviously, but like, it was effective. It was scary. They were frightening. I mean, we saw the expanse of a Borg cube again. I mean, just like how many of them. I mean, it's a city. It's kilometers of just thousands upon thousands of non-people walking around doing shit.
And another really
also
cool
assimilating
thing
you
that they built on was they gave us very non-human, and there was like one that had the horns growing out of their face that reminded me of the shark tusk thing from Lilo and Stitch.
That was creepy.
There were other ones that were modded. There was one that had a panel across their face, which I was like, that seems like a sensory dish, and I wonder if they assimilated the Saru prototype alien that we got to see in Lower Decks that had the eyes, but then they just assimilated down to an optical, focal area. Just all kinds of cool stuff. The way that they rendered the Borg and their assimilations. Another thing that I thought was really interesting, and there's kind of an anachronism here. The Borg alcoves were Picard style. They didn't have the plasma dish
you're right.
NG Voyager ones. These ones were just very Tron, green light, roundabout, da da da. It's very from the artifact.
The artifact, yeah, and especially the vinculum. Yeah, the vinculum definitely was oh cool, Seven will walk in any minute and link up real quick. That definitely. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, it was.
I rewatch that scene sometimes.
Gosh, there's so many moments. So many missed opportunities with that. But let's get the elephant out of the room. The neurolytic pathogen. Where is that from?
It's so sick.
It might have been Janeway's from the. No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been. It would have been from Endgame. That's what she used to disable the. Yeah. So that's very cool to mention that.
It doesn't have to be, though, because Icheb's people were also trying the same thing, if I remember correctly. So it could be another race's neurolytic pathogen that does something similar. It doesn't necessarily have to have been the Janeway one. Could be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
That's true, though. At the same time, like any other pathogen, Icheb's people's pathogen was designed to kill, like destroy them, and this one just seems to have put them to sleep. So I feel like they wouldn't have mentioned it if it weren't that one specifically, but at the same time, it could be one of those things of like, I got you. But
it may not even be a particularly durable sleep because the kids woke him up without doing much of anything. Let's be real.
Well, I mean, they added a new voice to the hive mind. That's obviously going to wake the Borg up because they're like, new friend? Like,
yeah.
Look,
and an interesting friend at that, because now we know that the Borg can assimilate non-corporeal beings, too.
Which is fascinating.
Maybe that's why the Q are afraid of them. That's why maybe don't antagonize the Borg is a thing.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a neat little callback. Again, one of those little sort of deep dive lore moments. But yeah, I thought it was cool.
Something you were saying, Dag, before that I wanted to point out, the non-traditional Borg designs, the one that had that like 3-level panel thing that covered half its head was really awesome. It reminded me a lot of the Cenobites from Hellraiser, because they would have masks that would do something similar.
Yeah, that's the one that I was like, that reminded me of the Saru alien, even though the Saru alien structures are much taller than that. The assimilation process could bring all those eyes into, an array.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely is scary. And then, of course, Zero being assimilated and having to fight against the hive mind to assert control again. My brain was like, oh, it's the power of friendship. I'm like, no, it's a cartoon, moron. It's the power of friendship. Let the kids know it's okay to, go against the grain when your friends really need you. It's okay.
Good lessons for kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Good lessons for adults, let's be real.
Today, tomorrow, yesterday, yes.
Yeah, I think that's one thing about Prodigy I want to mention. Like, it is a kid show. I don't think it's dumbed down. I think there's like little moments of like Jenkum being Jenkum and also Rock being cute, but like it's still it can be pretty like I'm in danger, It's very much like not sanitized at all. And I think that's cool. I think it's cool that they brought the Borg in and made them the Borg.
When they were all tied down in the assimilation chamber, like that's a scary thing for kids, right? Like the idea of that they're gonna change you and you don't have a say in it isn't a comforting thought for anybody.
I do have beef though, because I think them pulling Zero out of the collective with the power of friendship is bullshit. I know it's a kid show. I get it. I know, but it's bullshit.
I think Picard season 2 gives us a good explanation for this, though.
Okay.
So, in Picard season 2, remember when Picard is hooked up to the Queen and he's talking about like hooking up to them, and it's like they'll seduce you really quickly, especially if you've been there before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time they've got a Medusan mind that's spent its entire life in a hive mind, so it understands the hive mind about as well as the Borg do, maybe just not how the Borg do hive mind.
Okay.
Here you've got a situation where Zero's in there and he's losing himself in the hive mind again, and then outside of the hive mind he's reminded, no, you're Zero, you're not just part of the hive mind, you're different. And that triggers his own like defense mechanism that releases him, because he's not biologically assimilated. They're not biological at all. So all that there is the psychological brainwashing of the psychological assimilation that would go on.
Yeah, I guess.
I have something to support that theory. Does anybody remember what the Borg designation for humans is?
1269 or something like that. It's something I don't remember.
It's 5618. Humans are species 5618. And I use that to point out that their expertise with the Medusans is extreme, because the Medusan species is 802. Medusans were in the first 1,000 species that the Borg encountered.
I don't think that they're ordinal.
You don't think?
I don't.
Why not?
because Atreus's species, the guy who designed the Dauntless in the first place, his were like 6'2" something, also very low number, but they're a Delta Quadrant species. Like, I don't think that they're quite just 1, 2, 3, 4 ordinal.
Well, you had an opportunity to take a win.
I know. I
mean,
I gotta be honest.
On the other side of the coin, on the other side of the Ferengi are species 180, so like,
which makes no sense.
Yeah, no. But
yeah,
there's definitely something to say that species who have a hive existence are more susceptible to the Borg than individualistic species. So
yeah, I mean,
there's that.
I guess I could say that. I mean, because they were already Borged up a little bit. And they also took their time with the little spinny hand, which is funny to me because like Borg drones aren't going to like hold back and like wait for dramatic effect. But anyway,
well, they couldn't use their normal simulation methods. Remember, like the nanites were disabled fully by the neurolytic pathogen.
That's true. That's fair.
So they had to go through like TNG season 4 methods of assimilation rather than their normal stuff.
That's true. It did make sense that Zero was able to break out.
In First Contact, they're using nanoprobes and they're cutting arms and legs and eyes off. So, that.
Yeah, cash.
Interesting. Another deep cut that I just noticed. Because Janeway orders tea here in Endgame, Admiral Janeway is also ordering tea in 2395.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
She drinks tea and then like meets Captain Janeway and she's like, "What happened to you?"
Yeah, like I gave it up years ago.
Yeah, it's a moment. So, I love
cool
that
little,
actually.
Cool little like, hey, let's show Janeway drinking tea now kind of thing.
So let's talk about Dr. Noam.
You know the voice of Dr. Noam?
I don't remember it offhand.
The voice of Dr. Noam is Jason Alexander from the Think Tank.
Oh my god,
okay.
King!
Cool.
I knew I recognized that voice. Okay.
So I love this character. He is everything I want a professional Starfleet Tellarite to be. He is professional, but he is snarky, and he is really funny about it. I like him a lot. He also looks like a very different breed of Tellarite than Jenk and Pog. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't look like they should be related.
I like that. I like that we're getting physical diversity among what used to just be blanket species. Like, they talk about like worlds that are just environment worlds. You've got the desert world and the ice world. And
worlds with hats.
Right. We're incorporating this diversity among alien species and not just humans and Vulcans.
Yep, we did it with Romulans in Picard season 1 too, right? Like, oh, he's a thick-headed northerner because he has the ridges or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing a little bit of all of that, and I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I like that because there are subspecies we know that for a fact, and so it is nice to see that they're making that effort. Yeah,
we had the Andorians and the Anar in 2004, so I think it's really cool that they are expanding upon that, and you don't need just a cookie cutter makeup for your alien species.
I also love that he just looks at Ascension and is like, "You're a kiss ass," like in front of the Admiral.
It's such a Tellarite thing to do.
I love him. Actually.
Essentia. She's a Trill. Mm-hmm. She's voiced by Jamila Jamil, who just got off of playing Titania in She-Hulk.
Oh, that's Jamila Jamil's character. I couldn't remember which one it was.
She was also amazing in The Good Place.
Yes, she was.
Yes, so true.
Yep. Did you guys recognize the weapon Gwyn shifted her toy into on the bridge when she was fighting the Borg?
A batleth? Yeah.
A freaking batleth.
It was pretty sick.
I don't know why she knows what a batleth is, and I don't know why the heirloom has any idea what a batleth is, but I don't care. It was awesome.
I think they've been studying Federation stuff. Batleth would be in the database. That's as simple as it needs to be.
That's fair, I suppose.
Except this time, when her batleth got broken in half, she didn't kill the Klingon Emperor.
Fair.
Yeah, that was really cool. I will say, as a weapon, I really like the heirloom. Like, I know it's kind of like, oh, it can turn into anything, but like, it's really cool looking. It's, it can liquefy, and it's really neat. I really like it.
So this was something I got out of this episode that I wanted to bring up that I thought might be interesting. Based on the heirloom and based on the living weapon from the future, right? What do you guys think of the Vaunicot potentially being the source for programmable matter technology for the Federation that we see in Discovery Season 3 and 4?
Oh shit. That's a good point.
Ask that one more time.
So you know how the heirloom and how the living weapon, right? How they kind of morph and change in shape. Do you think that might have been the inspiration in canon for programmable matter that the Federation is using by the time of the 32nd century?
That would be really interesting, and it would point to a future of peace with the Vaunicot.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean that would make a lot of sense.
Because the heirloom in particular reminds me a lot of when we see like Discovery's bridge like changing shape and such.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
It does make sense. Although I will say, programmable matter is little. They look like nanobites almost. It doesn't. It's not one thing that becomes a bunch of other things. Or like I don't know.
That's what this could
be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to describe what I'm talking about, but it's different, but it could be based on that, if that makes sense.
The only big distinction I noticed was the fact that the heirloom thing seems to be somewhat psychic, right? Like there's some sort of like extra sensory ability to call for it. Remember how it would
the
go through decks? Yeah, it's a Vaunicot thing, I think, more so than the tech.
And it reacted to the underground subdeck thing, like with the symbol of Solemn. Is that what she called it?
Yeah, Solemn is the name of their planet.
That's right. That's right. I always forget. But no, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I have an easier answer. You're all just not worthy.
Yeah.
It's Thor's hammer of space.
The other thing I wanted to say is I really like how varied the crew of the Dauntless is. We've got a first officer, Zendorian, the chief medical officer, who's like a Tellarite, Essentia, who's the navigator, who's a Trill. Like, this is a good amount of diversity. I like that.
Yeah.
Give me more of that. Give me a Ferengi officer on the ship too, please.
I think it also speaks to Janeway's personality that her first officer is Andorian, because she worked well with Tuvok, and obviously not Vulcan, not exactly the same, but
kind of quite different, in fact.
Well, yeah, but like he seems more level-headed than like the ensign or the doctor, or and I know it's dumb, but I wish the doctor were the EMH, but oh well.
Ooh, interesting observation.
I don't know.
Maybe we'll get one too.
I want
Maybe we'll get an EMH when they have a medical emergency and he has to be a doorstop again.
Please, I love it. Plus, I feel like Bob would say yes. I feel like he'd want to do that.
Actually,
and bring him back.
So here's one thing that I think is interesting: the way that the Dauntless has been following the Protostar, they're almost always like 2 episodes behind, right? So next episode is when I would believe the Protostar would be... Sorry, episode 4 is when I would believe the Protostar is going to be far enough along that the Dauntless is going to find this BORG cube. So...
Except something happens at the end of episode 3 that makes me doubt that.
Possibly, but we'll see.
I want to see Janeway rob the BORG.
The alien with the horns, they're called the Rhinos, according to Memory Alpha right now. They just haven't like officially named them. And one was on Tars Lamora mining with the kids.
That's why
that's fair.
Thank you. I knew I had seen it before. I just didn't know where.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the ones that screamed at Dal.
Wait, was he the one that had a husband or like a partner that was really cute too? Like the little romantic couple?
We're not reading on that part.
I think so. I think it was. It was. I think it was. I could be wrong.
I thought it was the Rhino and the guy that had like 4 arms or something, right?
Yeah, I think that was that. Yeah, which was precious, by the way.
They didn't even know each other's names, but they knew they loved each other.
Oh my god. Star Trek love. But yeah, right. I knew I had seen that before.
Anything else stand out for you guys on this episode being awesome, noteworthy, that you thought was cool? The wake up scene at the end with the diviner?
Very cool. I think the scale of the BORG cube was a good, like flying the ship into the BORG cube. I think it was well done, because I think that sometimes we see, for example, like in Picard, when the BORG cube, I was talking about this in a Discord server with Hi, when it lands on the planet on Coppelius, and it just like lands in a little lake. I love that there's not a crater; it's just it landed in a lake. Cute, but it's huge. It's a city in a lake, And I think we see it in space so often that it's hard to get like the scale of it, but like seeing it next to the Protostar and then seeing like the Protostar fly into it, and the scale of it was easy to recognize.
Well, the Protostar is tiny. The Protostar is like smaller than the Defiant. It's a tiny little ship.
It's a little baby.
And the BORG cube has like a crew of 60,000. So I mean,
or something crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it was 60K, but it's something absurd, and it's just a big comparison.
It would be interesting to see that comparison, because I mean, like, we've seen scale fights before. Like in First Contact, you've got a whole fleet of Federation ships floating around this BORG cube. It makes the BORG cube look like moderate to large size, but in front of freaking Protostar, it's gargantuan. And if you had like a Galaxy class sitting next to it, and the Galaxy class is like 6 times bigger than the Protostar, then you're like, okay, to scale, I'm understanding things better now.
All right, so I looked it up real quick. Memory Alpha says that the crew complement is up to 130,000 on a BORG cube. So.
That's no moon.
I think that the Death Star had a crew of like 1 million, so that's a little on the other scale.
1 million
Death
versus
Star's fucking huge.
1 million Imperial soldiers or 1 farm boy?
Money's on the farm boy.
Money is on the farm. Republic credits on the farm boy.
All right. Anything else, Dag?
Not for me, Suzanne.
I think I've said it all, actually.
Well then, let's see how good I do at reading and doing image forwarding.
Wait. Small more thing. I thought that the interaction about the BORG saying that the living weapon is something that, you know what, we can't disable it, we don't know how to, which is what Zero came out of it with knowing, but they do want to assimilate it anyways and use it against the Federation, is a very BORG approach to things.
Like, fuck it, we'll just take it.
Yeah, we'll take it, we'll assimilate it, we'll learn from it, and then we'll use it. Even if we don't know how to destroy it yet, we're going to try to assimilate it first. That's what they do with 8472. They're like, we don't know what it is, we don't know how to beat it, but we want to assimilate it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you don't have to worry about assimilating it. It already wants to destroy the Federation.
Right, exactly. Just send it.
Let's make a deal. Why don't you let it destroy the Federation first, then assimilate it? Because you might assimilate it and then break it, and then it'll break you, and then nothing happens.
The BORG don't have impulse control like that.
That's true.
Somebody needs to install inertial dampeners in the BORG reasoning loop.
All right. Cool.
Here we
Third
go.
episode. Let's go.
Star Trek Prodigy, all the world's a stage.
Sorry, I thought it was Galaxy Quest.
Exactly. We'll talk about it. Continue, Dag.
You have to help our people. I have one job on this podcast. It's stupid, but I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
Just read the historical document. Document.
Anyway, go ahead.
Don't do the old speech to me. I was there because I read it. All right, we're way into the weeds.
We're in the loopy hours, baby.
Back to Star Trek Prodigy, episode 13. All the world's a stage. We open on the Diviner talking with Admiral Janeway on the Dauntless. He tells her someone stole the Protostar, but can't remember who. She shows him a picture of Chakotay, and he says he remembers him, and he was taken prisoner, but he can't remember more. Me pushing buttons and stuff. Weird. So yeah, he can't remember more. Suddenly, he has a flash of his world burning in the future and begins to panic when he realizes he's surrounded by the symbol he fears, Starfleet Deltas. Before he can panic longer, Dr. Noom hyposprays him. Essentia enters at that moment and tells Janeway they found an empty escape pod from the destroyed communication array, and that the survivor was rescued by another unidentified vessel. Janeway orders pursuit of the survivor, saying this is no longer a rescue mission, it's a manhunt.
She's going full Equinox, baby.
Never go full Equinox.
Sorry.
Never go full Equinox.
Go for it. Sorry.
Dahl gives an opening log lamenting the death of their dream to join Starfleet due to the super weapon that will wipe out Federation tech. They can't even send a hail out. But they have agreed to help other people anyway, and they found one such world. Dahl plans an away mission and needs Rock Talk. Rock Talk is watching over Murf, who is still unwell from the last episode. It's agreed that Rock can stay behind to keep watch. Pog, Dahl, and Zero and Gwyn beam down to the planet. There's interference messing with the electronics, but they don't have time to worry about it as they encounter two individuals wearing green uniforms with Starfleet deltas. Speaking in the cadence of Kirk and Sulu, the two individuals introduce themselves as James T. and Sulu from Starflight, and they live at New Enterprise. Prodigies are taken to a massive makeshift building in the shape of a ship, populated by people in the same green uniforms with a statue of someone in a red shirt in the middle. The Enterprisians celebrate that the Prodigies have come to help them with their distress call, but to share more, they put on a summary play of the last mission of one Ensign, presented as a great hero who fell from the stars, who brought gifts of knowledge and a message of peace. Ensign warns the Enterprisians of a great curse called the Gallows that seems to have followed him to this world. Many Enterprisians fell sick to the Gallows, and they fled to a space that was distant enough to be safe. Ensign's dying words were praising Starfleet, who would one day come to rid them of the Gallows. That day is now. Dahl is not okay with this. He's ready to leave, saying these people are living a lie, kind of just like we are. A young woman enters, Cadet Uhura. She's plagued with black rashes and is weak. She says she's seen the Gallows, two glowing eyes, breathing smoke, fire, and death. They take her to the medical area, where Dahl says curses aren't real, and he notices he's also been infected with the Gallows. Zero can't determine the cause with the interference, but seeks to synthesize a cure. Gwyn asserts they need to find the Gallows. Eerie mountain cave glows a sickly blue. On Protostar, Rock continues to worry about Murf to no avail when Gwyn calls. They need Rock to join the away team and bring supplies. Why do I not know how to read the words that I wrote? What is going on?
I'm the same way.
Brain?
It's all good. You got this, King.
So Rock leaves Murf in hologram Janeway's care. On the planet, Uhura and Dahl are getting worse. Gwyn, Pog, and Rock head off to confront the Gallows. Dahl is losing his cool as the infection causes him irritation and itchiness. And the Parisian doctor, Bones, put some wood leeches on Dahl's neck, immediately alleviating the itchiness and irritation. Boone admits their facilities are subpar. They're not really Starflight, but they aspire to it anyway, just like Dahl. In the forest, the away team approaches the crack in the mountain. Inside, glowing crystals illuminate an area smoldering with poisonous green gas. An earthquake forces them down into the depths of the cave where they discover the Gallows, an old Starfleet shuttlecraft, the Galileo. Rock notes that there's too much subspatial interference to get a reading on the shuttle, but it's the kind of interference you'd get from a broken warp core. It's leaking shuttle plasma that's reacting with the crystals in the cave. They're dilithium. It's also what's been poisoning the trees in the area. They can't get a clear signal out to call for help, so Pog takes it on himself to try and use the comm relay on the shuttle. Summoning his courage, he gets to work. Zero is making zero headway on a cure in the lab when suddenly Pog's voice comes over the old 22nd century communicator. He shares what they've discovered, and Zero begins synthesizing an antidote. Successfully, it almost immediately remedies Uhura and Dahl. Dahl admits in a panic he doesn't know what he's doing, but quickly backtracks. Glad to be alive! Pog adds that he, Rock, and Gwyn are trapped in the mountain. Hologram Janeway can't bring Protostar in without going offline, but Dahl has an idea. He beams up 3 of the Enterprisians who previously demonstrated competence in a stage play. And as they're a bit retro, Hologram Janeway loads a holographic Constitution-class console array over the Protostar systems. Confident, the three Enterprisians, Dahl and Zero, boost into the rescue. Just as the shuttle is about to fall into the reservoir below, the comm system is triggered and relays the last log of one Ensign Garavik, an actual red shirt from Kirk's Enterprise, and the only one who ever survived an away team during that 5-year mission. He recounts how he came into the presence of the Enterprisian, very likely succumbed to the gallows himself. Just then, the shuttle falls, and Protostar manages to beam up the away team with no time to spare. Flying out of the mountain, they receive celebratory welcomes from the other Enterprisians. Happy to have helped the people in distress, Dahl embraces this new chapter of Starfleet. They collapse the cave entrance to prevent further sickness and give the community technology to boost their waves. Protostar warps away, and Rock goes to find Murf. Murf seems to have entered a slimy synthwave chrysalis on the wall. That's dead.
Murf's a Pokemon.
Murf's evolving into a Butterfree.
It's Butterfree. Or there's what's after Wurmple? What's after that guy?
I'm a first gen kind of guy. I'm sorry.
No, I'm going with James Cameron approach here. A Xenomorph's coming out of that.
Oh hell no!
No.
God no!
It's a Xenomorph, but it's gonna walk out. It's gonna be like squee.
Jesus Christ! That's
I do
terrible.
like the continuity here. Murph's was ill in the last episode in the holodeck, and one of the funny theories at the time was that Murph's got ill when they were talking about time travel. Name another species that also gets ill in the presence of weird temporal stuff. Elorians, as established in Picard season 2.
Maybe he's an Elorian larva.
Yes, the Elorians have an indestructible first phase of their life before they evolve into a humanoid.
Oh my god.
That would be weird.
It'd be something. I want Murph to evolve like spikes or something that he can shoot at people that are mean to Rock.
I want him to evolve so I can just hear him talk.
Yeah, that's all I'm thinking. I just
British
want to hope
accent.
that this next non-juvenile form, like a nymph form, whatever he's becoming now, is going to be able to talk.
British Murph. British Murph.
Who drinks
oh my
tea?
God. Yes, perfect.
So, a lot of cool stuff in this episode. They do talk about Janeway going on a manhunt to find Mr. Frex. That's the reason why I don't think she's going to come across the BORG ship.
Oh, that's true. That's a good
The
point.
BORG ship might come across Frex, might come across the Dauntless, but if Janeway is on a pursuit course for whoever picked up Frex, that would lead me to believe that she's going to skip the BORG.
Here's my thought, though, right? Let's say she finishes finding Frex, gets him back, whatever, right? She's going to want to restart from where they last were, so she'd go back to there and track from that point, right? Backtrack.
Assuming there isn't another Protostar warp trail to follow.
That's fair.
Yeah, because if they backtracked, I feel like she might feel like it would lose time just because, clearly the Protostar has moved on. So, after they're done interrogating him, it's all right, where are they?
This is where things are going to get weird for Janeway, and I think you're right on this aspect, Renzo. I think Janeway's going to encounter the Endopresians, and
I'm hoping so.
And that is going to be why would terrorists help people with an issue they were having? And that's going to lead her to be we're not facing the right people, and that might call that scene, Suzanne, that you mentioned from the trailer where Dauntless is chasing Protostar. And Janeway might have some insight to be they wouldn't just help a people like that for no reason. And maybe she pulls out a warp and they establish some kind of visual light flashing communications system.
Or, yes, she understands they help them, but she could also have a moment of they broke the Prime Directive. They're using this ship and they're going around the quadrant wreaking havoc because they don't know what they have and we have to stop them now.
The rules about second contact are fuzzy.
But when has she ever seen the Prime Directive and gone, let's follow it? That just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
She sees the Prime Directive and says, no, moving on.
First of all, Janeway has no reason to suspect that the people on Protostar are bound by the Prime Directive. As far as she knows, Protostar was stolen.
Yeah.
Now it's stolen, and the next thing she sees is a destroyed communications array. Okay, this means they're terrorists, and we're gonna hunt them down. We're gonna find Frex and learn everything we can. Frex may tell us what he knows, what not, but after that, all he can say is these people showed up and destroyed my system, and then they left. So Janeway's got that knowledge. Then maybe she skips the Borg thing and ends up on the Enterprise thing and is like, why would they help people after destroying a Starfleet comms station with a Starfleet ship? And so that's going to give her some information that she's going to need to use establish communication.
They did give them Starfleet technology, and it's not that they're bound by the Prime Directive, it's just that she might realize, like, okay, they still have technology that they're giving away without Starfleet's leave.
But they didn't really break the Prime Directive because Garivik gave them tech too.
It's the second contact, not first.
Too. I mean, they could tell her, like, oh, they were kids, and she'd be like, the fuck?
Maybe,
okay.
If they understand what being kids are, because everybody on this planet looked alike. They had some sexual dimorphism, but other than that, they all looked the same to me.
That's a good point.
But Garivik gave them enough information just on his own that they could look at Constitution class systems and go, oh yeah, I know how to work this.
Wild.
Thermian says
actually.
What? I like the innovation of being able to be like, hey, load up a constitutional class mid-23rd century template and overlay the displays. I was like, okay,
that's neat.
That's cool.
Yeah, everything I'm seeing on Twitter is, it's like, Aaron, you're a genius, brother. Of just like, this is a love letter to original series. I also really loved the patchwork, the sewn on badges as well. And the patchwork uniforms, and that they were green. I thought that was a good
and they had Garivik's red shirt, and they had the phaser. That was pretty cool.
They had real phasers that worked too. Remember, they shot at Jen Pog at the beginning with one too.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely sick. I love the idea.
Do you think the green is a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that Kirk's original uniform on the original Star Trek was green?
No.
The cameras picked it up as gold.
No,
I think it would be though.
I think it has more to do with their biology, because they had those green accents and built into their forehead and such. So I think maybe green is just the color that they choose for clothing.
Green is their color.
My color with green. If they were trying to mimic Starfleet so much, why didn't they have gold, red, and blue?
Well, yeah, and it could be. I mean,
they never read blue or gold. Mm-hmm. They only ever met the red, and they didn't want to impersonate Ensign.
What if they're only dichromats and they can't see those colors?
Oh, perfectly fair. Maybe they just don't see them.
Boom.
That's true. Either way, right, I mean, it would. Either way, it's cool. But I like to think that.
I gotta pull another Williams Jennings Bryant moment about yellow journalism and drag us back to real history for a second.
Okay.
So, this episode demonstrates something that's happened in real world called a cargo cult. It's a really interesting bit of history. It happened a couple times in the late 1800s, but the famous ones are from World War II. So when the U.S. Navy was like conquering across the Pacific to push back the Japanese, they had to set up like little air bases on tiny little islands that had never really been contacted by civilization before. And they would be like, here, we're going to use this land. Have some food. Here's some Spam. Have a pineapple. Enjoy. Leave us alone. And the people on these islands developed literal worship cults around airplanes and around service members that were there. There was a cult called the Cult of John Frum, right? There's a cult of Us Navy. So, like, these things literally have, like, a basis in reality. Vanuatu, a couple other islands had, like, thousands of followers to these cults for decades after the war, too.
Yep.
So, the whole idea is perfectly realistic, and I really like the way they presented it, especially the mistranslations, the misheard words, space flight, ensign rather than ensign, all that. Loved it.
Yeah, I agree. Although I love to say here's a pineapple, leave us alone. Very true. But no, I mean, yeah, I like that a lot of it has basis in history, because in a way we'd like to think that this is distant future, also history, and so it all comes together at some point, and it makes sense that there are. I didn't know that there were so many, though. I didn't know that was like a widespread phenomenon.
Yeah, it happened all throughout a bunch of little islands around Papua New Guinea in particular, where it was just like, we needed an air base here to strike at a Japanese fleet, so we built a base here, and the natives got curious, and well, we weren't going to shoot at them to keep them away, so we made friends.
Yeah, And they built literal like effigies of planes to be like, here, one of us. And it's a very fascinating aspect of our history.
Yeah, there were actually like groups that tried to make boats in the shape of airplanes because they wanted to leave their islands and go to where the Americans came from in a boat shaped like an airplane. Unfortunately, not very buoyant, so they mostly just sank, but they definitely tried it even.
What do you think? Okay, so looking at the ship that they lived in, was that just a manufactured hullabaloo that kind of emulated the Enterprise, or is that based on design specs that may have been handed down from the 22nd century?
I think it's based on the Hiawatha.
Okay.
So do you remember Jet Reno, how she was on like a medical frigate that was crashed onto a planet? It looks a shit ton like what they built.
Let me look at it. Oh, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. The nacelle struts are not perfect, but the body of it is pretty okay.
Yeah, the nacelle struts I can hand wave away in that like this is TOS aesthetic versus Discovery aesthetic for design, but besides that, it fits pretty close for me. And I expect that Garevik, when he was talking to these people, brought on his logs, brought some tricorders, some historical stuff. Eventually they all broke, but that's how he was teaching them things. So they probably saw a design for a ship. Maybe that was where Garevik was posted before the Enterprise.
You think Garevik died of the gallows?
Good cue.
I think he did. I think he did, and I think he ran out of his medicine to be able to deal with it, because he was probably using the comm relay to call for help. He left his last comm there, like, so he visited that place after he got stranded. Another interesting thing, Garevik is a real person. He was in a real episode of TNG, and he's one of the only red shirts to survive an away mission. And that brings me to the interview that I mentioned earlier, where Waltke says that, yes, this is basically the sequel for Garevik. From sometime in the mid, second to third season, before the Galileo 2 shows up on TOS, Garevik is ordered on this mission that lands him here. And so that's what sticks it to me, that this is Prime Timeline. This isn't Kelvin.
Okay. That tracks.
We love Aaron Waltke, so yeah. I just, take the words.
I actually think
Aaron Waltke's gospel.
I think the way that they covered the whole concept of like the way they keep this oral tradition like going by doing plays is really good too. I know we made Galaxy Quest jokes at the beginning of this, and we should make more of them, but it makes a lot of sense that a culture is going to be passing along stories with plays and myths and legends and such, and it's going to get distorted over time. So yeah, I think that they did a phenomenal job with this episode. It's probably my favorite of Prodigy so far.
Yeah, I agree. It was also just I'm still watching the original series, so I'm very just now getting into it. But it felt like it really did feel like a love letter to it. And I really liked that about it. And I also just liked the it's little details, it's little things like that. But also, yeah, we should make this was Galaxy Quest Star Trek edition, which is it flipped it a little bit. Obviously the only difference is that they couldn't make everything exactly correctly. It's a primitive society, but it's dope. It's so dope.
Yep, they put a lot of effort into making the Endopresians sound like the original series characters too. The James T sounded a lot like a Shatner impression. The Sulu sounded
like Sulu.
Yes, although awesome. Instead of being oh my, it was my, right? Like little things like this here and there. The Bones character sounded a lot like Bones, but he was voiced by Fred Tatasciore, which I really liked again.
Oh,
so
cool.
Yeah, he's now double dipping into different shows.
Yep.
I love him. Yeah. No, I thought it was really, really well done. And I love if I'm going to segue a little bit, because I love that Murf just gets a cocoon. I love that kid go back and they're like, he's changing. Like, it's just really dope. And I'm excited to see how Rock reacts, because I'm sorry, I love Rock. I know she's like, I guess, younger than all of them, but probably also 40.
maturity younger, biologically older.
They,
I mean, she spent all that
Yeah.
time alone. Not like she had a lot of role models to advance that any.
yeah, and so well, maybe Janeway a little bit, but no, I mean, it just it was great. It was awesome. I loved it. There were the little bits of it, and Jankum being Jankum is like, I'm a little sick. Maybe I'll stay home, and it's I don't know. There's little
Maybe he's
things about
growing
the
on
show.
you.
I still dislike him, but at least he comes by it honestly, like.
Neat new piece of technology I liked. The printer, the replicator for medicines in particular. That was cool. That's neat. We've only ever seen them do that like with the actual ship replicators before. So now they've got a portable one, which is great.
Neat. Yeah, no, that was cool. I really liked that as well.
There's an interesting thing here. At the end of this episode, the Endopresians enhance their play with cutouts of our Prodigies. If Janeway stumbles upon the Endopresians, she's going to see the face of her enemy and realize they're kids. I think that's Janeway's intuition. It's a kid's show. You don't need a whole lot to be like, nobody's going to ask the question, well, how do you know they're kids? They're an alien species. Maybe that's what they look like. She's going to be like, well, Tuvok did that one time, but most of the time, they're just kids.
Yeah.
They're also in uniform. The cutouts are also in uniform, so they're going to show that they're wearing a Starfleet uniform and wearing cadets uniforms.
And Janeway has had to deal with people masquerading in Starfleet uniforms before too. Some of this stuff is her just having to like recycle stuff that she already did, which is going to make it easy for her to solve the issue when they meet the real Janeway.
Assuming their computer doesn't get hacked.
Hopefully.
Well, my guess is that if they're smart about it, they do it in a way where they can't communicate with each other, but Protostar has these massive windows. It's not just a tiny view screen at the front of the ship. They can communicate through line of sight, probably, and you can probably transfer over with, an EV suit.
Yeah, one of them's gonna have to get out and just jump.
We saw that in the first episode of the season. The tractor beam can catch you when you're in an EV suit and pull you on over.
Yep.
My question is this: what if you just had a white flag and it just floated toward the ship with a white flag in your hand? I don't know.
You'd have to know what that meant, and I don't think anybody on Prodigy.
I don't know if they do anymore. Yeah, I mean, I guess Janeway would be like, that's older.
What would be really funny is hologram Janeway speaking to Janeway. That would be where the funny parts are.
Oh, I expect that's going to happen.
Janeway's not corrupted, though. Maybe
hologram Janeway.
Yeah, her file may not be part of that corruption.
If she's air gapped, she might be able to go over. But what I kind of expect is for Janeway to come over and be like, "What happened?" And hologram Janeway's going to be like, "I don't remember." And Janeway's going to be like, "Computer unlock holographic memory authorization Janeway Pi Omega," and then Janeway the hologram is overriding any of the lockdowns that might have been placed upon her by the Diviner.
I love that you actually have her access code memorized.
I have all of them memorized.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I did not have that memorized. Maybe you're the Janeway
7
stand.
Alpha Tango.
You're the Janeway stand now, Dag.
No. I'm just the one who knows all the passcodes. That's it.
So
he's the password guy.
I do think that this episode is really great. The only thing I have any complaints about, though, is the Galileo leaking warp plasma for 150 years seems a little crazy.
126.
Okay. I rounded
according to
up.
this episode, interesting thing. According to this episode, it's 2384, so it's 3 years ahead of Lower Decks.
Okay.
And 3 years behind the Romulan sun.
Either way, I'm just surprised that the Galileo shuttle pod had enough fuel or reactant material to leak for 126 years.
I tend to agree with that, yeah. That seems a lot, but
because in TOS, there's a few episodes where they talk about like the shuttle running out of fuel. In Menagerie, when Kirk and that Commodore are chasing after the Enterprise, they're running out of fuel and they're past the safe distance to return back to the starbase. So they definitely don't have unlimited fuel on these shuttle pods.
Right, but
I mean, the leak could have been small enough.
We're not talking about like gasoline. We're talking about like warp reactor plasma.
Sure.
I mean, the only thing that I could think of is that like the leak is small enough that like it disperses for a long time but doesn't actually run out. I don't know.
I don't know. There was like a
I tend to
little
agree.
lake of the green shit under the shuttle, so.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Kid
Yeah,
show,
I
I
tend to
can
agree with
ignore
that.
all these things. I'm just saying.
No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. And I guess,
You're not wrong.
you know, if we want to dig into the science of it, we'd be like, well, was that entire lake just the warp plasma, or was there already a lake under there that the warp plasma toxified?
Made green.
And then because it's a giant body of water that is now toxic with this warp plasma, and we know how dilithium is now like universally resonant with warp related things, that just made it worse. Just, you know,
Possibly.
catalyzed it.
I also
But yeah,
loved
no, I
the
tend to
scene
agree.
with the Protostar like going down into the erupting thing. It was very Kelvinverse again. I think it was the beginning of Beyond that has it, or is it the beginning of Into Darkness that does it?
It's
Into dark.
It's Into Darkness, right? That's
Yeah,
where they have that
it's
freeze
into
bomb.
darkness.
the,
I'm
the
almost
Beyond
positive.
one is where he's like in that chamber of the tiny
Oh, with the rolly people. Yes.
Yes. But I like the idea of Janeway like finally getting to the Endopresians and like seeing all of it and just like seeing people in person who she thinks might be impersonating Starfleet. Like, if I had a nickel for every time this happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? It's
Hopefully
just,
they can
ugh.
update that phrase. Like, if I had a slip of latinum for every time this happened, I'd have 2 slips of latinum, and it'd still be weird.
It's still too much. It's still too many strips. But no, I'm interested to see where that goes, because if she doesn't run into the Endopresians, I think it would be kind of a
missed
I don't know.
opportunity.
Well,
I think it would be a missed opportunity, to be honest with you,
So-
because that would help her
I
understand.
mean, I think
better?
a scene where that same party beams down onto Endopresia, on the Endopresian's planet, and they see the presentation, and Dr. Noam goes, "Wait, that's a Tellarite. The fuck's a Tellarite doing on that ship?" It would be hilarious.
Let
Yep.
Dr. Newham say fuck. Just kidding.
a Tellarite. See, what you're gonna see. What
It's
you're
a
gonna
kid
see
show,
is
but
he'll point out a Tellarite, and then they'll point out the Brickar, and then they'll point out Doll, and Janeway's gonna be like, okay, that's. She's got.
Oh,
clearance.
that's true.
Oh,
She would know
shit.
what he is. Yeah.
she knows what he is, but she doesn't know what Gwen is.
No
either.
one
But
does.
here's another thing that I was just thinking of. Like, yeah, it's all nice and happy if they can, you know, get somebody in a spacesuit out to come aboard Protostar, but they're also bringing the diviner back to the weapon.
Aha!
Accurate
aha,
point.
aha.
Accurate point. Hadn't talked about that yet. Yes.
Yeah, she's a little too trusting. She's like, oh, this poor man who doesn't know what he knows, and then like, so,
Oh
whoop,
yeah, and he's got to bite his lip now.
mistake. Yeah,
Like,
because now he's gonna know. It's like,
'Cause,
oh wait, I
well-
can manipulate this person. Sweet.
maybe, but I mean, they're going after Protostar, and he has reason to do that too. So as long as he bites his lip and takes his medicine, he can come too.
Oh, whoa. What I don't. Here's the thing, though. The thing about the diviner that makes me kind of beefy is that, like, hold on, my bad. Is that if you look at a Medusan, you're supposed to go crazy. We've seen people that have looked at a Medusan and like completely just don't exist anymore.
Yep.
Like, it's gone. My only thing there would be that the bioserum kind of recycles his.
I don't think it's the bioserum. I think it's Starfleet medical technology. So remember when Gwyn was getting looked at on the comms relay? They were like, "We can fix this. This thing can fix this. We can fix this." So I think that the like
Oh.
Medusan like insanity thing is now curable with development of technology.
Okay, fair.
That
Fair.
works for. I guess that works because he's on
Dauntless.
Dauntless. All right, I was gonna go with Vaunakot physiology.
They do have weird ass physiology. That's true too.
The only people that were exposed were 2 Vaunakot. So
That is
anyway,
true.
it'll be interesting to see if they answer that at all. If it's even important to be answered that way, because otherwise, you know, Zero could just be like, "Hold on, I've got to take off my suit again," and just walk
Yeah.
over. That'd be like,
All right, everyone
"Oh,
close your eyes.
Mr.
1, 2, 3.
Diviner." All right, I flashy thinged him. Now come over and get rid of the red.
It's like the
space
neuralizer from
panel.
Men in Black.
Exactly. That's what I meant.
Oh my
I
god.
flashy thinged him. Now come over and do something with the red frisbee of death.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it could just be physiology as well. But also, like, I'm cool with having
They-
John Noble as a villain in the Star Trek show for a while.
they did see the Enterprisians did see Zero, so they'd be able to be like, oh, a Medusan in some kind of contraption. Hopefully.
That's true.
Boons, at the very least, spent a good bit of time with him, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It'll be really, really interesting to see. I'm really hoping they do this now because we've talked about it so much.
I think it's such a cool idea.
They have to do it.
Also, they do this. They do this in a lot of kid shows, right? Like when the kids go off wild and do something, and the adults are following behind them. You see what the impact of the kids' actions is when the adults get there after they've already left.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a trope. I still think it's a good thing to show. Consequences and impacts of your actions are a thing to show kids.
And that's very important. That's really important. Do we have any other points, deep cuts, beef that we want to air?
I love Aaron, man. I just think he's neat.
Yeah, no.
Like, dude.
Well, I want to let the viewers know that due to the oncoming holidays, Beyond Trek Podcast is going to be on like semi-hiatus. So this is going to be our Prodigy third episode review. We will probably be back to do another episode at the next 3 episodes of Prodigy air. So definitely, if you want to engage us more, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on, well, don't come to my front door, but I mean,
I know where you live.
We know where you are, Dad.
I mean, it's true. Renzo's all like, I am BORG. And I'm like, yes, you are.
I'm not blinking, I promise.
In the meantime, as always, we are so happy that you are taking a listen to Beyond Trek Podcast, and we hope to chat with you again in the future. But for now, thanks for boldly going. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters, to S. Tam and Nora Hickson. Thank you so much for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.